Okay, so now it's time for the panel. We have quite a big panel, and I have not yet met any of the panelists. So I cannot put a face to a name, so I'm going to be as surprised as you are. So if you're a panelist, can you come on up and we'll introduce ourselves. So look, let's start by some introductions. I suggest what you all do is maybe take about 30 seconds to talk about who you are and what you do, just so we can get to know each other. And then I've got some really hard questions to ask you guys. So why don't we start at the end there and all introduce ourselves.
Sure, I'll give a quick sort of 30 seconds. So hi, everyone. I'm Michael Heinrich. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Oh My Green. We're a Y Combinator graduate company, and basically what we do today is we deliver food service, healthy and tech-enabled food service to companies such as Apple, Facebook, Google, and many startups in the Valley, as well as 9 other cities in the United States. And our personal interest in blockchain has been, in order to do this at really high fidelity, you have to build a lot of the supply chain technology in the back end to be able to deliver this. And so we're working on our own supply chain protocol as a result that we want to release. So that's a little bit about me.
Fantastic. Next.
My turn. My name is Aris Wang. I'm the co-founder of Bitbox Exchange, which is a top 20 cryptocurrency exchange focused on the altcoin trading, and our average trading volume is around 200 million US dollars, and our peak trading volume is 400 million US dollars. And I'm also the partner of Blockwater Capital back to South Korea. We have very diversified investment portfolio, including EOS, BZENT, and other famous Asia cryptocurrencies. That's it.
Chandler.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chandler. Chandler, the Chinese name is Qiandele. It's kind of the, when you get money, you get happy. It translates to Chinese. I'm the Bitcoiner, which is always Bitcoin. So like I said before, if Bitcoin will go to the $1 million. So it's kind of very famous in China, this word. So a lot of the Chinese buy Bitcoin. They believe that Bitcoin go to $1 million. So I hope that everyone here have a good day. After this conference, you will get 1 Bitcoin. Okay.
I hope it's true, because I got 10 yesterday, and I'm really praying for that one. And you're God, so I have to pray to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marco. My background is actually in marketing and advertisement. I've been living in China for around 9 years. I'm here representing A-Chain, which is a public blockchain platform, which is opening our office here in Silicon Valley about 3 weeks ago. And I'm here to build networks, relationships, get some projects and invest on them, and hopefully get things going. That's it.
Bienvenue. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jorden Woods, and I represent 2 companies. I'm a serial entrepreneur and have founded a number of different companies. My core company that I work with right now is called DoubleNova Group, and what we do is we advise governments, accelerators, and startups in building startup ecosystems. We're very much focused on blockchain within the last year and a half. And we are in the process of building a fund called StarChain Ventures. StarChain Ventures is really focused on both infrastructure and enterprise blockchain. So if you heard the last speaker talk, he was speaking about enterprise blockchain. We really see enterprise blockchain, or blockchain for large enterprises, as a very exciting area of growth. Thank you.
Okay, welcome everyone. I'm going to stand up for this because it feels like I have more power and control over these guys if I stand up. So let's start with some kind of really hard stuff. It's been a tough year in the US for blockchain because of the SEC and the government. My good friend Michael Arrington was subpoenaed for his investment in the Kick ICO, apparently. And according to the gossip, maybe 200 or 300 people have been subpoenaed, a lot of them in private equity or hedge funds. So far, and I'm an advisor to ICOs, no advisors have been subpoenaed so far. My wife is sure it's coming tomorrow every day. So how scared should we be that the US is going to miss the opportunity to understand blockchain? And how restrictive is it going to be for individuals? What are the rules that we have to play by? And what should we think about? Being here in the US as a blockchain person, how should we think about it, and what things should we be doing? And any of you can jump in, but it's about the political situation and regulations.
Sure, maybe I can just get this conversation kicked off. So I was speaking at a conference about 3 weeks ago, and at that conference I met the team from Kodak Coin, and they're pretty high profile. And they had put together, I've also been advising ICOs, but we had put together kind of an internal thesis about what might work for a utility token as well as a security token. And it turned out that the Kodak Coin team was really working and operating along the same lines in terms of a regulated ICO or a compliant ICO. And they told us that they had spoken with the SEC, and the SEC said that for their specific utility token, that there would be no action based on what they presented. So I think there is a pathway through, but you have to be compliant. And there's all of us have heard a lot about the Howey test and what does it mean in order for a utility token. So the company that's behind it can't really be, there has to be some level of decentralization if you're going to have a utility token. And the company can't really be promoting it. There can't be the sense that you're going to make money. And so the token is being consumed. But there is also, do a lot of writing on crypto. Oracle, Luke Kerner, is very much a supporter of security tokens. So I think there's definitely compliant pathways forward for both utility and security tokens, but it's not really well broadcast yet.
Anyone else? Have any of you experienced problems in this area yourself where you've had to adjust what you're doing because of it?
Yeah, I can speak to that really quickly. I think in general, to me, this is my sort of personal opinion, regulation is a good thing in the sense that it protects, so against potential projects that are either scams or I think there's a term in Chinese called air coins or something like that, where people basically just take money and run away with it. So I think in general, introducing regulation is a good thing for prevention of these types of things. And it, on the flip side, though, it increases friction. So, for example, on our end, we had to basically learn about all of the SEC regulations. So, Reg D, Reg S, Rule 144, SEC 506B, 506C. I feel like I had to become an expert in it just to sort of start a project and launch it, essentially. So it does increase the friction, but I think it also increases the sort of protective capabilities of it, because a lot of these projects that are being launched, they're not proven. There's a very real chance that there's a binary outcome. It's either zero or super successful. And so just making people understand the risks behind them, I think, is a good thing in general. So that's just my personal perspective.
Chandler?
About the regulation, I said, fuck the regulation. Fuck the regulation, The blockchain, they come to here to revolution, not a corporation, okay? Everyone here, for what? Right? I think here's the chance for the West to revolution the East. Because in the Wall Street, they control this thing, financial, the stock market. Everyone here working for them. They're take the everything, actually. Here, the West place look like just a slave, But the Wall Street is greedy, keep growing. Think about if without the blockchain, without the ICO, without the token system, token economic, what will be happen? Nothing happen, because this is all the West's chance. Here, if you're a coder, developer, you're just coding. You can the developer do something. You do the white paper. You can do an ICO. You can just like a IPO company. Without this chance before, do you have a chance? Here in Silicon Valley, how many companies go to the IPO? Tell me. Almost 99% companies that fail to the IPO, right? Here, because of the ICO, because of the blockchain, because of the token, everyone here have a chance. This is everyone's chance. This is the right to human being, not controlled by some kingdom, So I think this is a chance. But the East place, East Coast, Wall Street, want control, want regulation. So they make some rule to everyone. You cannot do this in the American country. U.S., you're not allowed to do that. Okay, you must go out of the USA, do the ICO. So it's why a lot of companies, if they want to do the ICO in the U.S., no, impossible. Everyone go to the island, some island, Cayman Island, Singapore, some Malta, a lot of places, right? So I said, fuck the regulation. This is your chance. If you want to do that, do it today. Don't be wait. Wait is waste your time,
So it feels to me incredibly like what happened with Napster in the music industry, which is when a new technology makes something possible that challenges an old business model. The old business model tries to kill you. Now, today we have Spotify and Apple Music. Why? Because of Napster. So it feels as if regulation is an attempt to slow down or kill something which is challenging the status quo. Now, for me, the status quo actually is countries. If you think about fiat currency, it's put there by a country. The Federal Reserve here in the US, in China, the central bank with the RMB, and so on and so forth. It feels that the equivalent of the music industry actually is nation states. The business model of nation states is to own all commerce within and between borders. Blockchain, it seems to me, is in the same way the internet is global. It is not owned by any country. And crypto is not owned by any country. Therefore, it's very threatening to the status quo. How many of you, if you were to predict the winner, Napster lost, Apple Music and Spotify won, how should we be thinking about this in crypto? When will there be a winner? Will there ever be a winner? Will the nation states be successful where the music industry failed? By the way, the music industry now loves streaming because it's making lots of money from it, but it didn't love it for 20 years. So comments?
Yeah, I think it's kind of an interesting situation right now. A lot of governments and banks, were kind of the first movers in blockchain, interestingly, without crypto, right? So if you look at private chains, there's actually been over 30,000 pilots of private blockchain systems globally. In terms of ICOs, there's been maybe a few thousand. So what we read about in terms of crypto is very exciting, right? And it captures everyone's attention, and people are making money with it. But there's this kind of quiet revolution that's going on, which is that blockchain is actually invading all businesses, and a lot of governments are actually working with it, but not necessarily with crypto. So I think what's different is, the picture that you drew with the music is that a lot of these players are actually using blockchain internally, and it's going to become a part of the fabric of the world. At some point, it's going to probably break back out into crypto because it's inevitable. but there's going to be this pendulum swing that we're seeing.
I want to come back later to this relationship between blockchain and crypto and how fundamental that is, but keep that in the back of your mind. But for now, let's just stick with the theme. Aries, you run an exchange.
Yes.
You probably are in the spotlight of lots of governments. Talk about this from your point of view.
Sure. I think, in my personal opinion, I'm very optimistic about the U.S. government, because first of all, as the chairman of SEC stated before, his son preferred to trading Bitcoin rather than stocks. So I think it's a very optimistic signal to the market. And I also believe that U.S. government supports anything that benefits the U.S. economy. So I think the blockchain technology could definitely provide some newly innovative energy that inject into the U.S. economy. And on the one hand, it's going to be a revolution on a lot of variety industries, like blockchain technology combined with game industry, with finance, with big data. And also, at the same time, the regulation should be involved, in my opinion, because sometimes if the market is never regulated or without any regulations, the market is going to be a little bit dangerous or too risky for some traditional institutions or big investors to get involved in. But what if the regulations in a suitable way, like you have a fit regulation into the emerging industry or emerging markets, that's definitely going to improve the markets getting more and more energetic, and a lot of new investments, institutions, players that are going participating into this industry. So all in all, I prefer a fixed regulations, and I am optimistic about the future.
Do you think it's possible to regulate? Do you think technology will advance quickly? For example, distributed exchanges with privacy coins probably make it impossible to understand what's going on.
Yes, that's the reason why people prefer. Some regulators prefer decentralized exchange, and centralized exchange is hard to regulate, and a lot of exchanges doing KYC very hardly because they want to know their customers, but it's still hard to prevent any criminal stuff or money laundering in any cases. But in my opinion, the fully decentralized exchange that can do a better thing is every transaction on your exchange is logged into the regulators once they prefer it, once they need it. So it does a big favor to the regulators to check the data very clearly. So.
I was just going to ask Marco. Marco, do you live in China now?
Well, yes, I just arrived.
So China is a different regulatory regime.
It's completely different.
But it's still a very strict one.
It is.
How do you see this?
Well, I think we all have a different point of view in terms of regulations.
I like Chandler's the best so far.
Well, I also believe that it's necessary. If you think about this, in the current situation that we're talking about $1 billion, blockchain, cryptocurrency. But if we want to get further to $1 trillion, then there has to be some sort of funneling, because you see so many projects coming to life, which is a white paper and non actual proof. Something I love to see is where are those projects that were announced a year or before, and they got investment. Where are those projects coming up? Like, we want to see the results, right? So we all have different point of view, but I actually support the regulations.
So let's talk. So we're divided. I think it's incumbent always. Every speaker always says on any conference I've been to, regulation is a good thing, and that's because they don't want to be subpoenaed. But I think in your private thoughts, it's interesting to me whether you think it's a practical thing. I mean, will regulation really? I'll give you an example. The project I'm involved with, Venture Network, we started wanting to be a US token issuer, fund, and marketplace. we really want it to be US. Our lawyers, who are US, said it's probably not going to be possible. It took us 6 months, but eventually we ended up with a Swiss-domiciled token issuer because the Swiss authorities have defined how they think of tokens, utility tokens, security tokens, and payment tokens, or hybrid tokens, and they will issue opinions about your validity. So we have a Swiss domiciled token issuer selling to only accredited investors in the US. We ended up with a Bermudan venture fund, which is normal, mainly for tax reasons, so that the ICO doesn't get taxed. And then thirdly, we ended up with a US-based marketplace, like an exchange, an alternative trading system, which will pay regular US taxes. And by those three things, we created a structure that complies with securities laws in the US. So we accept the designation of a security, even though actually there's a utility in the token as well. But we just accept it, and we behave accordingly. So through that process, we have completely left the US mostly, which I don't know if that's a good thing for the US or a bad thing. I hope it's a bad thing for the US because we'll be successful. So it feels to me as if, we can't be controlled. We'll just figure it out. So the whole effort is actually their own confusion trying to understand what they want to do rather than anything which will control us.
I would maybe add to that, what you're almost speaking to is sort of this concept of a decentralized autonomous country, which I think would then really be a threat to the US, because right now the threat is only on the financial side. But imagine if something now starts owning land, if something now starts owning a military, then it starts becoming really threatening to the sort of old hegemonic state. And imagine instead of doing that, you just kind of apply to this country. It has all these sort of free regulations, and you can just say, like, I'm now incorporated in, blockchain country A or something like that.
Yeah. Well, with ICANN and the internet, we already have an example of global governance for a piece of infrastructure not owned by a nation. Mm-hmm. So it seems that we are all, many of us in this room, we're traveling all the time. If I say to you, what's your nationality, you'll probably have an answer. But most of us are global in the way we think and act now. And I think technology and human beings are becoming more and more global. And as that happens, it feels as if our allegiance to a particular nation state weakens or becomes even full of animosity because it restricts us. And this has happened before in history. Florence used to be a city-state. Now there's Italy. So small things that try to have rules have been replaced by bigger things with different rules quite often in history. And what is the bigger thing than nation states with different rules? It's actually the technology infrastructure that's emerging as a global. So I think we're seeing before our eyes something new happening, and the governments are trying to catch up. We should probably move on to another question. I'm a sociology graduate and I love this stuff, but I'm sure the audience has had enough of it by now. So let's talk about ICOs. We all know there's lots of fake ICOs, but there's also lots of good ones. ICOs have tokens. That's what they're selling. So how legitimate is the idea of an ICO? And do you think it's threatening to venture capital, which usually invests in equities? Anyone can go, jump in.
Well, I actually think that it doesn't really affect much because actually venture capitalists are investing into ICOs. So when ICOs do well, so there will be more money being poured from the venture capitalists.
Most are not. I mean, I run a venture firm. We're not allowed to invest in ICOs because our limited partner agreement says we'll invest in equities. And security and equity are not the same thing, even if it's a security token. So I think most are not. Some more forward-thinking ones are, and there's some new crypto funds that, like Polychain Capital, and I forget the one. It's not DVLC, but it's something called DHVC. Yeah. So go ahead.
Well, so we're in the process of forming a venture fund that does invest in both blockchain and crypto. And so we've been in discussions with lawyers. And over the last 2 months, actually they said 6 to 8 weeks, this kind of hybrid structure is becoming very common. So I agree with you, say last year, most of the venture funds were just investing in equity. And so you could invest in the company, but you couldn't invest in the token. That's changing, and I think the ICO is being seen as a legitimate way. I've been doing venture kinds of, either startups or working with venture firms for the last 20 years. And so it's really an extension of early stage investment. The thing is that the bar really went very low, right? Typically, the bar had been going up higher. It goes through different cycles, say in the last 20 years. And so in the dot-com, it was more like the present, right? You had somebody with an idea and they could raise a lot of money, and that led to an explosion of innovation. And we had something, and of course there were scams and a lot of things that didn't go right at that time, and there were issues that the regulators, had to correct, et cetera. So I really see that the dot-com period and the current period have a lot of parallels. It's just that we have a very new kind of asset class, right? The token is neither a security nor a utility. It's both. And the rules in the US are basically from the 30s, right? 35. And so you have rules that can't understand something that's both a utility and a security. And so it's going to take a while for it to be able to work with that. But I don't think the venture industry is going to slow down. And, like Marco said, they're already investing. Andreessen, Sequoia, Accel, all the majors are investing in blockchain companies, initially in equity and now into tokens.
Yeah, there's also different types of capital. Financial capital from an ICO is only one of them. What about relationship capital, social capital, technical capital? All these sort of venture firms over time have built these sort of really broad and deep talent networks that they can then give to entrepreneurs. So in the best case, if you really partner with a wonderful investor, they can help open up doors to the right customer. They can help find the right sort of, VP of finance for your CMO and so on through their networks. So there's value beyond just the financial capital. So to me, if you have a really good VC and partner, there's more to it than that. So I think if the ICO starts morphing into that, and there's talent networks associated with it through, public sales, and I can see that there's more of a threat, but at the moment, I don't think so.
Okay. I want to ask the audience, who have a coin? Raise your hand. Whatever coin. Whatever coin. Raise your hand. Okay. Who do the ICO before? Do the ICO. Okay. Want to do the ICO? Want to do the ICO. Okay. Who's international, can speak two language? Two language. Raise your hand. Two language.
English and American.
Okay. So who think the ICO is illegal? Raise your hand.
Illegal,
Raise your hand.
You say?
Illegal.
Who thinks ICOs are illegal?
Raise your hand. Legal. Illegal, right? Illegal. Okay. So everyone raise your hand before. You are all international criminal. You should all go to the prison. Is that a joke? Or have some problem? Go to prison? No, absolutely not. Because a lot of people doing ICO, not only in this room, everywhere, all around the world, even in Africa, they do the ICO. Even to some island, somewhere who have internet, they can do the ICO. If you want to do the ICO guy to go to prison, all the world prison have no position. Think about that. Because of such a lot of people doing the ICO, want to do the ICO, want to join this kind of criminal. It's that bullshit to talk about the to talk about the regulation. So, who's here? Who's here? Believe the Bitcoin want to go well, or possibly hit to $1 million? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Okay. Tell me, when? 10 year? 20 year? Raise your hand.
Let's go with 10. Hands up if you think it's going to hit $1 million in 10.
10 year.
Hands up if you think 20.
Okay. 20 year.
Hands up if you think it will never hit $1 million. Hands up if you never think it'll hit 100,000. Thank God for that. Okay, so Chandler, so make your conclusion.
Okay, I think two things you should remember. One thing, we'll have the 100,000 different tokens in the future, at least, or more than 1 million different tokens in the world in the future. Because all of the company want to do the ICO. All of the company already do the IPO, like in the NASDAQ and in a lot of the exchanges right now. They are already on the IPO, already in the stock market all around the world, in Hong Kong, in China, in Japan, in London, in here, right? They all do change their token, change their stock, become the token in the future, become some coin in the future, like NASDAQ doing. They were already make a plan 1 year ago, NASDAQ. They want to do some of the coin-to-coin exchange. Before that, just a joke. Nobody believes so. But right now, NASDAQ CEO already said in October they were launching that coin-to-coin exchange, right? So it just started. A lot of the stock market company want their own token. The token can have a wallet, can exchange on a wallet. This is the future. So this first thing will be a lot of companies do the ICO kind of the ICO, have their own token in the future. Maybe the 100,000 at the beginning. That's the first thing you should remember. Second, right now, how much exchange in the world? You can remember kind of you can name some like 20 different exchange, right? Or 15. But in the future, it's not like that. In the future, will be the thousands of different exchanges all around the world. It's very easy to start an exchange. And there will be a lot of exchanges in the world. Your ICO right now, it's a big problem to launching exchange, because if you're launching in a big exchange, you need to spend a lot of money. The launching fee at least $2 million. But in the future, it's all free.
Is that true, Aries? It's $2 million to get on your exchange?
Yeah, sure.
No, my exchange.
A lot of them, maybe not big box, but a lot of the exchange listen the token for a lot of money. But in the future, it will be all free because of what? Because of this 1,000 of the exchange competition each other.
So
it will be given free.
I want to take that and talk about, there's this point of view that the blockchain is great. The only problem is crypto. It's the official point of view. And you'll hear IBM say, we're a blockchain company, but we're not a crypto company. And from my way of thinking, the reason that blockchain is successful is because the reward mechanism is built into the infrastructure. And so I personally can't imagine a blockchain without a cryptocurrency as being viable. How do you guys think about that?
Well,
one thing, it's a joke in China.
By the way, if you all put your hand up, he has to stop speaking. If he's talking too much.
A lot of people talk about the blockchain, but not a lot of people talk about a crypto. It's like a kind of you can fall in love, but you cannot make love. You cannot fuck. Why you make love? Why you fall in love? For what? The blockchain, only talk about a blockchain is bullshit. Talk about blockchain for what? For ICO, for some token, for some crypto. You make your own token. It's like you make love, fuck, and make have fun, That's what people are doing,
In other words, it's no good just looking at each other.
Maybe
Okay, let's go over to the end.
Yeah, I would agree that sort of blockchain and crypto go together just because the incentive mechanism, especially if you're doing something that's a network and you need network effects for it to be really effective for all the players within it, having a token sort of solves the cold start problem. Instead of waiting 5 years for individuals to sort of join, you can just incentivize that behavior right away and get to the desired outcome much faster. So to me, they're tightly interlinked.
So do you agree that there'll be 100,000 different tokens soon, or is your number bigger or smaller than that?
I'd probably agree with that, but I think they won't all stick around for very long. I think
So-
there'll be a lot of projects that die over time as well. So there'll be things that just fall through.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I wrote a paper called The 4 Pillars of Disruption, and it really talks about the 4 key things of blockchain. So the first one is really that it's an ultra-secure and immutable store of information, and the second is the decentralization of the transactions. The third is really the token, and the fact that you have this built-in gamification, and the fourth is the open source, which allows you to actually bring your community on board. So I think if you look at the use cases for businesses, they're private, right? They don't necessarily need to bring on users because the users are captive, right? You may be able to incentivize them, but just with the security aspects and the decentralization, you can reduce costs pretty heavily. And so IBM and Corda and a lot of these, they don't necessarily need a token because they can get immediate wins just by switching to blockchain, right? And they get massive cost savings and time savings and things like this. So there's a lot of use cases, supply chain, et cetera, for enterprises where they get information, they get transparency, they get just a lot of great stuff, and they don't need a token. Now, they can get more with tokens. So if you look at VeChain and if you look at Walton Chain, they're public versions of supply chain. And so they can, you have some problems when you go to public, right? Because now you have actors that aren't trusted, and you have to go to consensus mechanisms that are more complex. And then you need staking and things like this. So for enterprises, it's easier to start with private chains. But if you look at cloud, we had public cloud, and enterprises didn't want them. They brought in private cloud, then they went to hybrid. They're only now starting to go, the big enterprise is starting to go to public, right? Because they're trusted enough. So our thesis is that right now, a lot of the private chains won't have tokens. There's going to be plenty of use cases for them in the enterprise. They're going to generate lots of, successful projects. But if you look at the public sector, like B2C, you really do need tokens, to Michael's point, right? To incentivize and, to really bring in the trust element.
Yeah.
If you don't have tokens, it's almost impossible to run them.
So what we've really got then is, I think of it like this, it's digital barter. So instead of trading tomatoes for potatoes, there's a tomato coin and a potato coin, and everything can be traded for everything through coins, digitally, on exchanges. So you no longer need a centralized universal equivalent currency, fiat. It actually becomes unnecessary to commerce to have a universal equivalent. That makes me think about what is Bitcoin and what is Ethereum.
I would slightly disagree with your statement. But
Oh, great. Go. I love disagreement. Go for it.
What's still missing in the ecosystem is really good stablecoin, I would say. Because if you look at the price swings of Bitcoin and Ethereum and so on, if you're a regular person that just wants to buy a meal and then your net worth just dropped by 50%, that's not really a good idea. So I think Bitcoin, the way I see it, it's more like a savings account. Like you put your money in, there's a decreasing supply. At some point, there's no more supply, and your value should shoot up if other people believe it's the dominant currency. So what I'm actually excited about are uncollateralized stable coins. And so I think once they come out, I think they'll start solving and starting to really replace fiat, I would say. That's my personal view.
Just so everyone knows, we're going to finish in about 10 minutes, and I'm going to give you, the audience, a chance to ask a couple of questions. I haven't really got time for, so if you've got a question, why don't you come up towards the front here, and we'll hand you a microphone so you can ask a question. I'll keep talking with these guys unless you come up. So if you've got a question, please come up. Who's next?
For me, I personally believe that Bitcoin is just among people's consensus, and it's the blockchain 1.0. But once we enter into the blockchain 2.0, we know the smart contracts, how to use the smart contracts, how to use the Ethereum. And right now, people are all excited about the blockchain 3.0 and the blah, etc. But the only thing is back to the Bitcoin itself. I don't think Bitcoin itself has a lot of technology uses, but it's just come up with the consensus and the distributed ledger. But besides that, there's no smart contracts, nothing else that people can improve on that chain anymore. So people are trying to gather more knowledge to improve the blockchain itself. So for my personal opinion, the Bitcoin will always be there because this is the belief of tons of people. This is a consensus. And in the future, there might be more feasible coins that come like the stable coins and maybe other coins that could be have more technologically useful part compared with Bitcoin, but the Bitcoin will always be there.
Let's talk just a little bit about Bitcoin, Ethereum, Neo. Let's think of that as the fundamental blockchain layer of tokens, if you like, the infrastructure. And then you've got what's beginning to be called the second level, which is applications, distributed applications that have their own tokens. Do you see any fundamental differences between these layers and the role of the tokens? And I kind of think of Bitcoin as a permanent store of value. You call it a savings account. I think of Ethereum as a similar thing, but with programmability. How many of those are there going to be? Is there going to, if you're an investor, a venture capitalist, and you're looking to place money today, I know Andreessen Horowitz says they're only going to focus on infrastructure, which is the first layer. Is it time to focus on the second layer as well, or maybe even the third layer? And what are those? How can we think about that?
Yeah, maybe I'll just jump in here, because this is what our thesis is. So if you look at the internet and when it built out, and there's a very nice graph, or very nice graphic from Union Square Ventures. They talk about, like with the internet, there was TCP/IP, and that's basically the fundamental layer. It's very thin, right? And then you got applications, and it's a very fat layer, and you can make a lot of money in all those applications, and that's basically what's happened over the last 20 years. If you look at blockchain, the protocol layer is actually very fat, and you can actually make a lot of money in all of these protocols. And so you can continue to invest in a lot of infrastructure for a long time, and we actually need it, because if you look at Bitcoin, you can do about 7 transactions per second. Even Ethereum, it's like 10 to 25, and it's going to take, with Plasma and Casper and all of these enhancements, it's probably going to take 1 to 2 years where it can actually scale, right? And there are a lot of competing infrastructures, but what we've seen is there's a lot of brand in Bitcoin and Ethereum, and it's really hard to beat brand, right? Out there, people feel more comfortable working with the big brands. So there's going to be a lot of investment in cross-chain technologies and the ability for all of these different chains to actually work with each other, which doesn't really exist right now. Pantera is really invested in Icon, which is a cross-chain, technology. There's all kinds of chains that will improve transaction speed. There's going to be going out to exchanges seamlessly. There's really a lot of middleware. We had NewCipher talking about key re-encryption. So there's a lot of infrastructure to invest in before we get to applications. And then once we have enough infrastructure and you can support all of these applications, we believe that will be in 2 to 3 years. Then you should be getting, all of this massive amount of applications that everybody is looking forward to. But we think it will take a while.
So I think you're probably the second layer, right?
No, actually, we're building our own protocol.
You're building a protocol.
We are for very similar reasons. Right now, if you think about protocols, I think the battle is really around sort of speed, flexibility, smart contracts, ease of use, and some of the benefits that something like an Ethereum has is developer network effects. You know, everybody's building on it, and so it's attracting a lot of brain juice in that sense. But you can still build really specialized protocols, so like a supply chain protocol, which is what we're building, where you can build a lot of the innovation right into it, and you can sort of write sort of distributed applications or smart contracts, whatever you want to call them, right on top of that protocol layer and really optimize them with sort of that underlying layer. So I think there's a lot that can still be done in the infrastructure space. However, I do think at some point there will be some consolidation, because there's only so much speed that you can get to, because once you get to the millions or tens of millions of transactions, that's not really a competitive advantage anymore. And then you have to really differentiate on other pieces. And even Bitcoin doesn't have smart contracts today, but there's Rootstock, which is building a sidechain to Bitcoin, which will enable smart contracts at about 300 transactions a second or so. So you start seeing all these sort of platforms starting to consolidate into the same direction.
So I think that so far, at least, that's a consensus that we're moving towards, that we're still in the phase of infrastructure, that we haven't moved out of infrastructure to application layer yet. And obviously, human beings use applications. It's a little bit like we're still a store of value, we're not yet a means of exchange, because human beings spend, they don't really care too much about stores of value, they care about spending things and buying things. So we're still at the store of value, protocol, infrastructure stage. When do you think actually, let's make this the last question, and we'll go across everyone. Two things. One is, when do you think that's going to change? How soon? And it relates to what I really want to ask the last question, which is, what most excites you about 2018, and what most scares you about 2018? Did you want to ask a question? Yeah. Okay, let's do your question. Ask it now, and they can take it into account when they answer. Okay. Give me a microphone, someone. Lean over this way, that's going to screech at you. Just, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we were talking about, Bitcoin being a good currency just because of the consensus, right? Everybody agrees that Bitcoin is valuable, but lately with blockchain, we're transitioning to data, right, and the value of data. So we're going to have several different blockchains that might not have a consensus. How are we going to take advantage of all this data if they conflict with each other? And the information the information as to how to deal with blockchain is lacking. I think like 1% less know how to deal with blockchain. So the average consumer, the average person is not going to know which information to trust on their own, and they're going to rely on corporations and blockchain projects to figure out what's right. And that's going to be pretty hard, I think. I wanted to know your thoughts.
Okay, confusion caused by multiple blockchains and data not being in consensus.
Yeah, so I think, proof of work, obviously, with Bitcoin is what we know is the most secure form of consensus, but it's very slow and very energy consumptive. But if you have a lot of trusted actors, like in private chains or in permission chains, again, it matters what kind of a network you have. If you can trust most of the players in the network, the consensus, there's consensus right now that exists in centralized players. They use Paxos or Raft. And they just make sure that everything is working, because you're working in a cloud and all these different servers have to be able to get consensus. So consensus already exists, but what happens is when you go to a public, decentralized situation, it's much harder. You can have malicious actors, you can have a lot of different groups. So I think we can trust data. There was an earlier presentation about we trust Google or we trust Facebook or whatever. So we trust these centralized players with data. Maybe that's not a good idea. But in these decentralized exchanges or decentralized players that will have in the future, there's going to be varying levels of consensus. And they're going to have to be faster. They're going to have to be less energy consuming, because there's just, otherwise they're not economically viable. So I think, the future is bright, and it just comes down to having better forms of consensus, and there's a lot of different forms of consensus other than, proof of work.
Let's go back to my question about what most excites and what most is scary about 2018. We'll finish on that. And please tell people how to get in touch with you. I'll do the same. I am the same on every platform: Telegram, WhatsApp, Weixin, WeChat, Twitter, Teare, K-T-E-A-R-E, all platforms. And then answer the questions and then tell people how to get in touch.
Sure. So Jorden at DoubleNovaGroup.com. So in terms of 2018, I'm most excited about enterprise blockchain and infrastructure, as I've talked about. The regulation side, I think, is a little bit scary because it can be done wrong. And so I worry, what's going to happen on that side. I think that we're going to see probably about 2 years of consolidation in infrastructure. And so it's not going to be as exciting as last year, 2017, but it's going to be exciting in the enterprise, and it's going to be exciting for infrastructure-focused companies. Probably we'll get to like a 1999 explosion once all the infrastructure has been built, probably around 2020, 2021.
I'll be dead by then, and that's okay.
Well, since we're a blockchain platform, I'm actually very excited to be working with all these dApps that you were talking, because you're working with innovative minds. They're all trying to solve a problem. I put a short sample before the time is short that I've been helping a lot of startup companies launch different projects in developing markets, such as MENA market, Latin American market. And most of these companies, when they enter these markets, they leave immediately because they don't see the revenue coming straight away, and they don't realize that most of these users, 20% only have credit cards and the other rest use cash. So when you find these apps that can solve these issues, whether for its transactions, whether for its information, or any other industry, it really changes and innovates the current world that we live in. And what scares me the most is pretty much to see some of these projects that could be good to be used into something else. And you can get in touch with me on our booth right here. I use WeChat and Facebook, that's all. Fernandez Marco, that's pretty much.
Okay, Chandler.
This year is to make money for everyone. Focus on the 100 top 100 different coin. In this top 100, you focus on who have such a lot of fans. You follow them. Like the US, right? They have a lot of fans. You follow them. Like Chuang, they have a lot of fans. You follow them. Stellar, they have a lot of fans. You follow them. Neo, Quantum, a lot of the chain have no fans, no people use it, but it have a lot of fans. So sure, you should be look international. See every different country, like China. People like what kind of token? Korea, what kind of good token is a good token? Go to Japan, a lot of places you should see around the world, and put your money on that. And if you're working hard to find your top 5 token, it's enough. You can make a lot of money in 2018. And next year, and Bitcoin will be 2.5 years later, Bitcoin will be halving. After Bitcoin halving, Bitcoin absolutely 10 times again. 10 times again. It's around the $100,000 for the 2.5 years later. So right now, if you have a lot of money, buy Bitcoin.
That's Chandler's law. It's like a law of Silicon Valley, Chandler's law. Aries.
Yes. As you guys know, I'm running exchange. So for me, this year, the most exciting news for us is Nasdaq announced its plan to open the crypto exchange. I think for most of us know that's traditional, especially for those established institutions back to Wall Street. They are hardly to announce anything that's so aggressive. once they announce this news, that means they already have a plan or something already going on there. So this gives either the ICO markets or the token markets, or even so a lot of startups or other companies who are focusing and noticing the token economy, a good signal. It's a good start for us. Maybe we can consider to join the blockchain and to have our own ICO, to issue our own cryptocurrencies. That is a big improvement. So we will see how everything going on. There's a rumor that Nasdaq going to online its crypto exchange on October, and I think it's not that far away. And we will see what exactly going to happen after that.
Michael.
Yes, I'm so most excited about all the experimentation that's really happening in the space. Like, I'd love to see a decentralized autonomous country happen, for example. That would be really cool. Like, will it work? I don't know, but it could be really cool. And then just things like, I already mentioned the uncollateralized stable coins, for example. So there's a project called Carbon that I've been looking at, but that requires somebody to figure out oracles, and oracles basically just means that everybody agrees that something happened. Like, for example, it rained in Seattle, and that everybody thinks it happened. That's a really hard problem, it turns out. So actually solving these really hard problems is what I get excited about for 2018. Even there's something called the machine learning protocols. Like, that's super exciting too. Like, what can we do with that as a technology? One thing that I'm worried about for 2018, and is something that I've seen amongst my own friends, is market sentiment driving adoption. Just because it's a bear market doesn't mean you shouldn't be building technology. And if it's really revolutionary, it should be independent of the time of the market in general. So
thank you to all of our speakers on the panel. We are 8 minutes late. I was actually really amused by the fact that the agenda says we should finish at 12:08. I said, why 08? Why not 05 or 12? But it's 12:16, so it's now lunch. Go and have lunch. Be back at 1 o'clock because they'll start on time. And thank you for the morning.